Hello, this is the Music Business Radio Behind the Scenes podcast. I'm your host, David Hooper, also the host of Music Business Radio. And we used to have a program, part of Music Business Radio, called the Post-Show Show, PSS. If you've listened to the show for a long time, you might remember that. We've got some old episodes on musicbusinessradio.com. And that was where I, along with the producer Gary Crane and engineer Dan Buckley, would discuss the show, talk about what happened, kind of tease the show because we record Music Business Radio ahead of time. And it goes to the editing people and we wrap it up into a nice 52-minute package. So we would discuss that and get that out ahead of time to kind of tease it to Music Business Radio listeners. We haven't been doing that, though. Everybody's extremely busy, and that's just one of the things that kind of got dropped in an effort to have more production of the actual show. So I'm kind of bringing it back here with the Music Business Radio Behind the Scenes podcast. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this was because we have to explain things, or I have to explain things. I get a lot of email from people that have questions about Music Business Radio. So this is an opportunity to do that and also just talk about what we're doing in the studio and give you a taste of that before something comes out. So one of the things that happens a lot is people ask me questions about the Demo Derby. I thought I'd kick off this brand new podcast with information about that. The Demo Derby, that is the fourth section of the show. It's about the last 10 or 15 minutes of the show. And we allow people to send in demos or finished CDs. We get both. And then have the music critiqued by me and whoever my guest is. And if you're interested in that, let me give you the address real quick. It's Music Business Radio, 1310 Clinton Street, like President Clinton, suite number 200, Nashville, Tennessee, 37203. That's Music Business Radio, 1310 Clinton Street, suite 200, Nashville, Tennessee, 37203. I'll give you that address again later on here in this episode and send those to Attention Music Business Radio. A lot of people have questions about that section of the show. If you haven't heard it, you can check it out online at musicbusinessradio.com. And one of the most frequently asked questions is, do we screen these things ahead of time? And I can tell you, no, I have absolutely never heard any of the music ahead of time. My guests have never heard any of the music ahead of time, unless it was just like a coincidence. You know, we have 6 degrees of separation here in the music business, and sometimes, you know, maybe I'll get a demo or I'll hear something online or I'll know of a band and we'll have heard something or the guest will have heard something. Sometimes we know the players. That's just strictly coincidence, but we do not actively listen to the music before we get it on the air. However, my producer, the producer Gary Crane, or sometimes one of our production assistants who do the coordination for the show, they do go through the demos ahead of time. And the reason they do that is strictly to listen for content. It's a broadcast radio show. A lot of times people will try to be sneaky, or they just won't think anything of sending something with explicit lyrics, and that could get us in trouble with the FCC. So they do filter it out for content. Sometimes they filter it out for style. If we had 4 or 5 demos on the show and they were all country, people would have some kind of thought about the show, like maybe we're just a country show, especially we're from Nashville, or if it was all urban music, or if it was all one style of music. We try to differentiate with different styles of music each time. But other than just listening for different types of content, other than making sure there are no naughty words in there, we don't screen it. They leave it up to me and leave it up to the guest to give our critiques. It's the very first time we've heard it, and we usually listen to a verse chorus, just the very first maybe minute or 90 seconds, just to kind of give us a taste of it. That's exactly what they do in publishing companies. It's what they do on record labels, and we give people an opportunity to hear more if they want to, and sometimes people will take those home. Our guests will take those home, and we've had them get in touch with people who send in demos. So let me give the address out one more time. It's Music Business Radio. Send it to 1310 Clinton Street, number 200, Nashville, Tennessee, 37203. Again, I want to say, if we know people, it's just a coincidence. But if you want to give me like a heads up and let me know that that you're sending something in, that's fantastic. I can be on the lookout for it. Sometimes I'll see the package like in my box ahead of time. Other times it just goes straight to Gary, the producer. And you can send that to me via Twitter, just at David Hooper. That's my username. So here's another question that we get all the time about the Demo Derby. People ask, why CDs? Why don't you just take digital content? Can I email my demo to you? And the answer is you cannot at this time. We're looking into ways to do that. We've attempted to do that. And unfortunately, when we open it up, a lot of people don't screen demos at all for quality. And they kind of just think because they did it, it's going to be good. Sometimes when you put out a CD, most of the time, actually, because you're investing money in it, you're going to kind of raise the bar on yourself and put something that's a little bit better. I mean, even if you have to burn it, you'd be surprised. I mean, a lot of guys would just send in this guitar vocals, and they hadn't really put the thought into it, and they would do what I call a churn and burn. They'd send it to us and probably 20 other people, not really thinking about it, not knowing what they're getting into. And we're trying to just put a filter there to give people that are really, really serious an opportunity to get to us, because we only have a limited time. We've only got maybe 4 or 5 songs each episode. And we want to give the people that are really, really into the show and like what we're doing and want the feedback an opportunity to be heard, as opposed to just everybody who maybe gets our name out of like a database or something like that. Here's another reason we do CDs. One, we really like to review marketing materials. I mean, I'm a marketing guy. Musicmarketing.com is my website. That's how I make my living, is through marketing. And we like to see the packaging on a CD. I like to see, personally, this sounds crazy, but the way you send your CD. I mean, that makes a big difference on whether something gets listened to, and it gives us a great topic for discussion. For example, got a CD in the other day, and it was literally just a CD in an envelope. There was nothing written on it. I think there might have been a note, hey, David, play this music, something like that. Not a whole lot to go on, and that's a topic of discussion and lets us get valuable information out to people. So that's one of the things that even that's going to stand out more than just a digital MP3 file that comes through email. When you get 10 or 20 of those, they all look the same. All the emails end with like gmail.com or AOL.com or whatever your domain is .com. And there's an attachment. It doesn't really let us differentiate you like a CD, like a handwritten note, like any kind of marketing materials or packaging that you have. So one more thing that I get a lot of. People ask all the time, or they comment rather, Music Business Radio, hey, heard your podcast. And Music Business Radio is a podcast at musicbusinessradio.com, but it's also a broadcast show. I mentioned earlier that we have to screen things for the FCC because it does go out on broadcast radio. It's produced at WRLT in Nashville, Tennessee. It's 100.1 if you're in Nashville, Tennessee. And if you want to stream the show, you can actually listen to it live before we get the podcast out at lightning100.com. That's one of the misconceptions. The other misconception, and I've kind of foiled this earlier by mentioning the people that I work with, it's not just me. It's not just me just kind of hanging out doing this stuff over Skype. We're at a real radio station, and I've got a real engineer there, Dan Buckley, who's fantastic. Gary Crane is the producer. Justin Hamill edits. Dan edits. And we all just kind of pitch in. It's just some guys that really, really love music. We're not a huge operation, but it's certainly not just one person. A lot of people kind of come up to me and think it's just me because I'm the voice of it, and I'm always out talking about it, and I'm doing things like this. But there are a lot of people involved to get this thing out. And, that needs to be known, because I think that if you're trying to do something, you might think it's a little bit easier than it is, or you might not know what's involved. And what we're trying to do with Music Business Radio in general just is explain the music business and how it works, and kind of, as we used to say, let you watch sausage get made. So a lot of people, and that's one of the information or the misinformation aspects that gets out there. People don't know it's a broadcast show, and people don't know that there are a lot of people involved. So we're here, the Music Business Radio, or I should say I'm here at the Music Business Radio Behind the Scenes podcast. You can tell this is a little bit rough. The show gets edited down. It's very, very polished. We've got 52 minutes. We usually tape for a lot more than that. and there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make it on the air. So I'll be talking about that. I may bring some guests in here, maybe do some follow-up questions about the show. We might do that after the fact, actually, if we get a lot of questions. So if you're into the show, you can leave comments. Just send me a Twitter message. @DavidHooper is my username. And let me know what it is that you want to see on Music Business Radio. If you've got any questions, if you've got guest suggestions, of course, on Facebook, just search Music Business Radio. And the podcast, where you can listen to the show at musicbusinessradio.com. And if you have any questions about maybe how to make your demos stand out when we get them, I'm happy to answer those. Again, Twitter is the best way to get with me, and that's @DavidHooper via Twitter. So thank you very much for listening. Looking forward to the new Music Business Radio behind the scenes podcast. We're going to just jump in here and give it a test, see how it works. And if it keeps working, we're going to keep doing it. So thanks a lot for listening, and I will see you soon.